Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gents around the world, and welcome back to an at last recovering Egyptian empire, where it seems that somebody has been smashing up loads of Akhenaten's artifacts and records. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but this has got Thutmosis III written all over it. Nah, I'm just kidding, it was Horemheb. So to recap, it's now 1319 BC, and I and Tutankhamun are now chilling out with the rest of the gang over at Osiris's place. And next in line to the throne, though not by relation to Tutankhamun at all, is Horemheb, who under the reign of Tutankhamun served not only as general of the army, but also as one of the chief advisors to Tutankhamun. Don't forget, he was a child ruler, and so was very much under the control of his Grand Viziers and chief advisors, namely I and Horemheb. In this regard then, we could consider Horemheb to be somewhat of a usurper to the throne, seeing as he was not related by blood to Tutankhamun, Akhenaten or Amenhotep III. Then again, we can also say that about Pharaoh I. So in order to consolidate his power on ascending to the throne, Horemheb claimed that the gods, specifically the god Horus, had chosen Horemheb to take the throne and therefore bring balance back to the land of Egypt. And I've stated before that the pharaoh had a key role in ancient Egyptian society, not only acting as an intermediary between the realm of humans and the gods, but also as the maintainer of Ma'at, the concept of eternal balance within the world itself. It was thought by Egyptian society and the court at large that by abandoning the polytheistic religion that Egypt had followed for so long, Akhenaten had upset this balance, and in so doing perhaps angered the gods themselves. Therefore, Horemheb, to legitimize his claim to the throne, declared himself to be the pharaoh who would restore Ma'at and bring Egypt back to its glory days. Oh boy, where have we all heard that before? But unlike some, it appears that Horemheb largely stuck to his promises. In order to begin restoring Egypt to its former glory, Horemheb would first have to reinstate fully Egypt's polytheistic religious system. He did this by reinstating the priesthood of Amun, who I have stated before may have had quite a heavy hand in the dealings of the throne before Akhenaten came in and emptied all of his Mentos into a bottle of Coke. Yet before the priesthood of Amun could resume their stranglehold on power within the Egyptian empire, Horemheb had a couple of tricks up his sleeve to prevent said priesthood from rising too far and gaining too much power. One of these tricks comes from Horemheb's command of the army before he took the throne. During the reigns of Tutankhamun and I, Horemheb had been elevated to the position of commander of the army, and within the ranks of the army we find priests, and you're probably asking, what on earth are priests, religious officials, doing in the army? Don't forget though that priests in ancient Egypt, whilst of course serving religious purposes and duties, also doubled up as medical practitioners during this time. And within this pool of supposedly loyal officials and perhaps friends within the army, Horemheb personally selected priests from the army to be given higher ranking positions within the priesthood of Amun. Therefore, through this, Horemheb could always keep tabs on the priesthood of Amun, keeping it under his very close watch, therefore preventing the priesthood of Amun from reacquiring said magnanimous amounts of power over the Egyptian throne and court. But Horemheb did not stop here. Continuing his reforms, Horemheb reformed the administrative and legal system of ancient Egypt that existed during this time. by dividing legal power between Upper and Lower Egypt, instead of being ruled from just one administrative centre. Because if you look at this map here, that's a decent amount of territory to govern there. And having just one or two people in the business of governing such an expansive amount of territory is going to lead to problems. And therefore, to avoid this, Horemheb had said legal power divided between two viziers, one based in the city of Thebes and the other based in the city of Memphis. Moreover, to further utilise the division of power within the Egyptian Empire, Horemheb began appointing regional judges and tribunes to govern smaller areas across the wide-ranging territories of the Egyptian Empire, therefore increasing the effectiveness of governance and administration across Egypt's territories. And with all these governmental and administrative reforms, it seems that Horemheb was an absolute one-man powerhouse. Exactly the kind of pharaoh needed to restore Egypt to its former glory before the disaster that was the Amarna period. And we're not even done with the successes of Horemheb yet. There's still more. For as well as being an effective administrator whilst sitting on the throne, Horemheb was also known as a prolific builder, enacting dozens of construction projects across the Egyptian Empire, including numerous temples, stelae and statuary. And of course, the tradition is back, we're adding additions to the temple site at Karnak. Here at Karnak, Horemheb built upon the work of his many predecessors by constructing 3 pylons within the great hypostyle hall within the temple site at Karnak dedicated to Amun-Ra. And it seems that Horemheb just cannot get any better, because he even had a soft spot for our environment, recycling building materials from the destroyed monuments of Akhenaten. Hang on. Recycling building materials from Akhenaten's monuments. Great. Great, so that's another almost good story. Just like Tutmosis III, of course he has to go about with a hammer and chisel and go all smashy smashy. Alright, if I must go into the finer details. So, I have stated before that Akhenaten's reign was not seen as desirable by a vast array of the Egyptian populace and within the court of the Egyptian Empire. And the viewpoint shared by us in the modern day and those within the royal court of ancient Egypt of Akhenaten's reign being an absolute bin fire led to the vast destruction of his monuments, records, and, as we see at Karnak, the recycling of them in Horemheb's constructions. And under pharaohs such as Tutankhamun and I, so far there had not been any persecution or proscription of Artanism, the monotheistic religion that Akhenaten attempted to set up during his reign. But under Horemheb, this is where we see the destruction of Akhenaten's constructions, monuments and records. Horemheb went about on an extensive campaign attempting to erase Akhenaten from the history books forever, smashing up his monuments, temples, constructions, chiselling out his name in any inscriptions, and removing any image-based references to Aten, Artanism or monotheism in any form. And Horemheb did not stop at Akhenaten. He even went as far as to destroy I's records, monuments, statuary, stelae, anything bearing Pharaoh I's name was also destroyed or defaced. Horemheb even went so far as to smash up Pharaoh I's tomb, destroying his sarcophagus and even causing considerable damage to his mummy. I mean, come on, chill out, Horemheb. I mean, honestly, yes, Pharaoh I may have usurped power from you a little bit after Tutankhamun's death, but did you really have to go and desecrate his grave? Blimey, somebody get this guy some anger management classes. Moving on though, and speaking of Tutankhamun, how is it that Tutankhamun survived this extensive program of erasure of Amarna period pharaohs by Horemheb? Well, during his reign, Tutankhamun actually elevated Horemheb to a considerable level of power within his court, originally naming him, Horemheb, as his heir, and it appears that it was Pharaoh I who usurped the throne, where Horemheb had originally been named as Rapat, or the crown prince or heir to the throne, after Tutankhamun's death. So this is perhaps why some scholars believe that Horemheb left Tutankhamun alone. He didn't touch his tomb or sarcophagus, leaving them both intact. And that's just lucky, for thanks to that decision, thanks to that mercy, we in the modern era are now free to go nuts over Tutankhamun to our heart's content. But just think about that for a moment. A split-second decision, this is what this decision feels like, could have altered our perceptions of ancient Egypt within popular culture completely. Imagine if Horemheb had instead decided that Tutankhamun was going to fall victim to all of this smashing, as well as and Akhenaten. It could have changed popular perceptions of ancient Egypt had things gone that way completely. I mean, we might be ranting and raving about Horemheb instead of Tutankhamun as a result. But such is history, and as a result, Tutankhamun is instead the poster boy of ancient Egypt as we know him today. And with all that, we come to the year 1292 BC and the death of Horemheb, a pharaoh who restored and reformed ancient Egypt back into a dominant powerhouse within the late Bronze Age world. A dominant power that is once again on the rise and ready to kick ass against the Hittite Empire under the ambitious reigns of Seti I and Ramesses I, who we will join next time. So for now, if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and maybe subscribe so you can keep updated on all the happenings of our world and its history as part of the Grand Portfolio. But until next time, I'm Lewis of the Grand Portfolio, and thank you for watching.